Hello guys, welcome to React Redux tutorial series. This is part 2 of the ongoing React Redux tutorial series. In the previous video, I explained what is action creator, reducer, dispatch, and install. So in this video, we are going to tackle the action creator. So like I said, it is easy to explain with diagrams, but when it comes to implementation, it's different. So like I said, if I want to explain action creator, it can take me a lot of time here. So as we proceed in code, I'll be telling you some things you need to know about action creator. Okay, so let's get started. So before that, let's go to React Redux documentation and then let's go to getting started. So first, we are going to install React Redux inside our application. Okay, so first of all, we need to install these packages. npm install if you're using npm, and if you're using yarn, it's yarn react redux. So let me copy that. Okay, and let me go to my terminal here, which one, and then let me open a new terminal and then paste it, and then yarn. Before that, sorry, you need to also install redux as its own, because redux itself is that is the foundation for all this. We need to install React Redux and then Redux itself. Okay, and then you are good to go. I've already installed, so let me cancel it. So now that you've installed it, let's go back to code and see how it's being structured. So I have my project here. Let me open, and inside my SLC, let me create a new folder. Let me call this one Redux. And remember, we have all these pieces. So let me bring this one here. Okay, we have all these pieces: action, reducer, and store. So let's create folders for all these. So there's a pattern we're going to use in your upcoming project. So we need to follow all these steps. Okay, so the first one will be the actions, and then the next folder will be reducers. Next folder will be store. All right. So we need these folders for now, but the first one we're going to tackle is called actions. So let me create a function called to-dos action .js. Okay, so let me close this tab here and have a nice interface. So first, let's look at properties of an action creator. Okay, so one, it has a type. Okay, it has a type. 2, let me say, it returns an object. Okay, and then it's a function. Okay, it's a function. Okay, so let me label this one here as what? Action. We have these lines here and show you that is what you're doing. Oh, sorry. Okay, and then let me call this one action. Okay, so now one is what? It has a type. It's a function that returns an object. So now let's see how to create a function. Okay, it can be a normal arrow function or a normal function, but I prefer to use arrow function. So let me call this one add to do action. The name is not compulsory. You can name it whatever you want. It's what? It's a function, okay, that returns an object like this of type. Remember, the type is what? The first one is what? Add to do, and then it has a payload. Okay, the payload is coming from where? From the form. Okay, so this action receives a parameter called to do. Okay, it means that when you call this function, you need to pass in to do. So that to do here is what you call the payload. Alright, so if you remember the diagram, if you want to withdraw, how much do you want to withdraw? Here we want to create, and what we need to create, we need to get the details about the title, other stuff from the server, from an API. Okay, now this is how we create what? An action creator. It's a function. So when you call this function, you need to pass in these parameters, the to do. Okay, but remember, we are dealing with API calls here, talking to our back end and make API calls to our back end. Sometimes we can get an error or whatever. So we need to handle the async part here. So the weird part of this action is that this time around, our action is not going to directly return an object, okay, but it's going to return a function, and that function will return this object. This is done because we need to handle the async part of this application. That's where we made mention of what? Dispatch. Okay, so one property of a function is that it calls immediately within some seconds. Okay, so as soon as it calls immediately, it will go to the store automatically. But here comes the question. For example, if you click on to do, maybe the server below and it will be loading. But as soon as we click on create, automatically the request will be sent to the store. Even though by the time the request sent to the store, we haven't finished creating the to do. So automatically receive undefined here, and it will cause some bugs. So this is a drawback of what? Action creator. But there's a way out. That is what we call redux Thunk. Okay, redux Thunk is going to help us to delay until the request has been made to the server before it will dispatch. When I say dispatch, it means call the function. Okay, so before it calls the function inside. So we're going to install another package called redux Thunk that will help us to handle the async part of our action. Okay, so let's head over to our terminal, and then here let's add yarn add redux Thunk. Okay, so while it's loading, let's continue. Okay, so the only configuration we need to do is we need to configure our store, but we'll come back to that. But as soon as we install the redux Thunk, for now, let's assume that we have already configured it. So as soon as we configured it, we have a function inside our action creator called dispatch. So let me leave you another comment here. As soon as we install redux Thunk, we have a function inside our action creator called dispatch. Okay, the name can be anything, but by convention we normally use what is called dispatch. So now assume that we have already configured our store to pass in this middleware. So the redux Thunk is a middleware that's going to help us to manage all the async calls inside our application. So now we need to make some changes to this call. So let's cut everything here. And now our action is a function that returns a function, and that function will returns these objects for us. So now that we have installed, we are going to return another function here. Okay, another function here like that. And this function, we have one argument called dispatch. So now this is a function. So a function are always first-class citizen, because you can pass a function to a function, and then we can call a function with a function as well. So now we have this function called dispatch. So now this function is going to dispatch our action type and payload, but we need to handle the async part here. So I don't want to use callback hell, so I'm going to mark my action as an async here. Alright, async await. And then inside my return, I'm going to say try and catch. Okay, so the first step is called dispatch. Dispatch what kind of action? Okay, so inside this place, we can dispatch any kind of action you want to take. So here, we can dispatch an action of withdrawal. But in our case, we are going to dispatch an action of what? Add to do. But before that, if you go back to our application, the final one, let me show you. When you click on that, you see that spinning. I want to handle this one too in my application. So this is action creator, action type. So this action type here, I'll make it add to do request. Okay, when it's request, it means that I'll handle this one. I'll show you how to do this with all these things in the component. So let's continue. So the first action type here, I'll make here is called add to do request. Okay, but here for this one, I'm not going to send any payload yet. So the next one is called the add to do. Okay, but before that, here let's say make HTTP call. Okay, talk to the back end, the API that we created. Alright, so here we are going to make some HTTP calls. So when the request is done, then we can dispatch another function. Okay, good. So here before that, let's bring in Axios. So let's install Axios, which is an HTTP client that helps us to make. I think oh sorry, I make redux. Supposed to be redux Thunk. Sorry, like this on my side, like that. I have it already installed. So the next one will be the Axios. Let's install that one too. So now we are going to make requests to the back end. So let's import that package we install called Axios from Axios, like that. So here, this is how we make HTTP call with Axios. This is not part of the action, okay? So this is what we are going to do every time we want to make requests to the back end. So let me make use of const here and then config. Okay, this configuration is for Axios. It's not. This is how we make requests to the back end. Okay, so for this one, we need to pass in some headers. Okay, because if I'm making requests to the back end, we need to tell the request that now you want to pass some JSON data to the back end. So we need to pass what is called content type. Okay, and then it's called applications.json. You can ignore this one because the Express will pass this JSON for us from the back end. I explained this one when I was doing the API. Okay, so I normally do this one because sometimes if you want to protect a certain route, you need to pass in, if you want to access a protected route, you need to pass in the token to the header. So this configuration file is very important to be familiar with. Okay, so now that we have our config file, then let's make the actual call. Okay, so const, let me call this one, what do you call it, to do. Okay, is equal to await Axios dot post. We're making post request to the back end, and the API. We need to make the request to this endpoint, and the API endpoint we are going to make request to is API/to-dos. So I created this API in the previous videos. So if you want to learn how to create this API, you can watch the previous videos. Okay, so now look at this endpoint. It's what? Make request of what? Using post method. So this is how we make the request using the postman. Okay, so you want to make this, you want to make the same request from the front end. So this is how you're going to do it. So this is the endpoint we are going to tackle. Okay, so here let's create another to do here. Let me call this one working, and then working, and then let me call this one go for work. Okay, so let me send. Then you see the response. I got it. So let's go to the application, the front end, and then refresh it. You see we have the same, as you can see, it has what? Refreshed here. So when I delete this one from the application, let's go to the API and go to fetch all API. It's like this, make request. That one is gone. Have you seen? So we don't want to make the request from this Postman, the back end, because we want to make it user friendly. That is why we are using the Redux part to do that request. So now let's copy this endpoint and then go back to the application here and then put it here like that. So here, as we saw, we pass in some data, the body, okay, here. So we are going to get the same data from the front end, which is this function, this to do here. So let me pass in the to do here. Okay, good. And then you pass the same to do. The second argument to Axios is the to do. Okay, the data you want to send to the back end is called to do. And the last part is called the config. So this Axios, the function that takes in the URL and then the data, the payload, and then the config. Okay, so when we make the request, we can destructure the data from the request as that. So now, when everything goes on well, then we can dispatch our action. Okay, so let me show you in the front end part. It's better if you understand what I'm doing here. Sorry, what is the yeah. So let me open the Redux extension 2. So let me refresh the application like this. Okay, so let's see what you have. Is it this one? Yeah. So when we add to do, let's try this from here. The completed one. When you say that, let's say drink. Okay, and then let's say drinking. Whatever. Okay, so add. So let's see the request. The first one is called what? Add to do request. As you can see, the first one. When everything goes on well, add to do success. Then you have the payload from from our server, like we saw it on the Postman as well. Alright, so let's dispatch another function. So we can copy this one to save our time, the dispatch function, and then here after our request, then we can dispatch an action called action to do success. Okay, and then we can send a payload of what? The data that we created. Exactly. So that's how we do it. Okay, so after we can handle any kind of action type here. So the next one is, as you saw, after I created, sorry, what was it? I have to reset it. Okay, so you see all the importance of all these ones. So the next one will be what? Why am I going like that? The next action we're going to dispatch is called reset. Copy it and then paste and then add to do resets. This reset function is going to help us to redirect the user to another page. Like you saw, as soon as we add a to do, as you saw that it's able to redirect us to the to-dos list. Okay, like this place. When you delete it, redirect to that. So it's help of all this reset action type that is making our life easier like that. Okay, so the next one is, what about if something goes wrong? Oh, sorry guys for up and down. When something goes wrong, you need to handle that action. Okay, so here under catch, let's copy this action and then paste it and then add to do fail, meaning when some error occurs. So when it occurs, we need to send something to the user. Okay, but here on this error, we want to make it user friendly, so we can get the actual error which is coming from the front end. So we're going to write a little bit of code here to destructure this error and get the actual error that we want. So here, let's try to create a variable here. So let me call this one. For now, it's empty string. Let's create what do you call it? What is it? Let's try to, where is it? Action. I think I might have some bad thing. Okay. So now let's try to assign the error to a variable here. Const. Let me call this one message. Now on this error, okay, we want to get the user friendly error here. So the first one is if there is error, okay, and on this error we have what is called response on this error, okay. If that's the case, then and operator, this is term operator here, then error dot response dot data. Okay, let me use this question mark here to make sure it's available before I pull out that data property on this object. Okay, so if you have that data dot message, okay, if that's the case, then let's say error dot response dot message, okay, error dot response dot data dot message. Okay, if there's no error on that, then let's just use error dot message. Okay, error dot message. Okay, very good. But so let me use the question mark. This is a new syntax about if you want to call it, what do you call it? I forgot the actual name. I'll find out. But all it's doing is that you need to make sure that this error is available before it pulls out. Otherwise, you can get undefined. So to avoid using n operator, we need to use this question mark to avoid the n operator. Okay. So now, if there's error, now let's send this error to the user like that. So the last part is we need to export default equal to, because I want to export multiple functions here. Okay, so we just exports what is called add to do action. Okay, just export this the function. Okay, like that. So guys, this is how we create a function action creator in our application. This is a pattern you're going to use anytime you want to make post requests. So make sure you are familiar with the syntax and all the pieces that comes into play. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, share, and comment. So next video, we are going to tackle the reducer part. Okay, now we finished with the action creator. We are going to reducer. Alright, so thanks for watching.